Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Wednesday in a Riv. And boy, we got a lot to talk about on the show. We had a really bombastic school committee meeting on Monday,
Yes, we did.
and of course, then we had the budget fiasco yesterday. So I don't know. School committee meeting I thought was quite interesting. Colin Byers' first meeting, and he acquitted himself fairly well. And they're talking about policy. But what I thought was interesting was that they had a lot of people complaining about the mold that's gone unaddressed for a long time.
At the
We've had
Laterno School.
we did a few shows on the mold and the fact that we have been some of our sources have told us that they were aware of that mold, painted over it, covered it up, didn't do things for a while. And then they talked about these underperformance of the schools, and all it comes down to one thing. We've proven that everything they do in this city is to keep the status quo for the political ticks. Paul Coogan was not comfortable because let's look at it objectively. He spent 30 years or so in the school department, and then the last 9 years, he's been a member of the school committee. Two terms, I believe, as a school committeeman, and now as the mayor, he's going into his fifth year as the chairman ex officio because of his status as mayor. 9 years. And the school department has continually gotten worse. We spend more money and get less. Again, he is the worst mayor we've ever seen. They like to talk about words like stability and continuity and not leadership and accountability. See, those are the words that we should have with every department. But you look at Paul on everything in this city, crime, interaction with the homeless, whatever, nothing. Nothing's gotten done. The only thing he's done is give a lot of jobs out, a lot of pay raises out, and make his rich friends richer. The people of Fall River have gotten nothing. This is the most ineffectual, incompetent mayor we've ever had in the history of this city when it comes to actually providing for the people who he was elected to serve. And this is the whole problem. And of course, our resident snowflake complainer was at that meeting. CJ, I don't know if you heard her again talking about harassment. Kevin Aguilar's harassing people again. It's mind-boggling. Like, we've been on the other end of that hypocrite. She likes to point fingers at people and call them names, like all leftist liberals do. He's a misogynist. He's harassing people. He says bad things. Get over it. She should know better than anyone else. She's an attorney. We have a little thing called the Constitution that gives us First Amendment rights to say things. And in this state, we have a Supreme Court decision which she should be well aware of, because I stated it in my letter to BCC when she filed those frivolous complaints calling us all kinds of names, because that's what they do, frivolous lawsuits. We didn't violate any law. Actually, we worked within the law. That Supreme Court decision said we can call them any kind of name we want. They're politicians. You don't want to be harassed. One person's harassment is another person's advocacy. He is advocating for his position and for the people he represents. That's the way Kevin Aguilar, I think, is looking at this. He's saying what he has to say, and he has a right to say that. As an attorney, you should know that. But you're a little snowflake. And you melt when things say, you can say bad things about everybody else. You can call them any kind of name you want. Even if it's what they're doing is legal. And by the way, being a misogynist is not a crime. Even if people were misogynists, they have every right to be misogynists, because guess what? Disliking women is not against the law. Just as a misandrist, which nobody knew that word until I told them about it, that's the opposite. That's a woman who hates men. Maybe you fall into that category. I don't know. Question could be, you could be one, but you have a right to be there. And the difference between CJ and I is that we will extend you the right to make those statements, even though they're totally incorrect. Nothing he's doing is against the law, but you have a right to go in front of that school committee and make yourself look like an idiot. Whining, somebody hurt my feelings. He's hurting their feelings. Well, don't run for public office, because then the Supreme Court decision doesn't cover you. Okay? Don't be a public official, because in the state of Massachusetts, you can go into any public meeting, and it has been disposed by the Supreme Court, and you can call them anything you want. You can't threaten to murder them or anything like that, but you can call them anything. And they even said it in the decision. You're muted, CJ. You're muted. CJ, you're muted.
They said in the decision that you can even use curse words. You can be vulgar in a public meeting as long as you're addressing it. And there's nothing the chair can do about it.
Yeah, but
nothing.
But you see, this is their hypocrisy, their double standard. It's like they can deface monuments in a federal park and violate civil law, the Constitution, constitutional law, and there's no charges brought against them because they're a Democratic voting bloc. They want the pro-Palestine votes. So they're going to let them destroy public property. And if a conservative did that or a Republican did that, they'd throw them in a slammer. So hypocrisy. And that meeting, the propaganda machine was in full force after that meeting, talking about how bad they are. Oh, they were called. Oh, he was harassing them. It's terrible. Oh, well, don't run for office. We get called names all the time. We don't care.
And we don't get paid.
And we don't even get paid. That's right. We just have fun. We like to be. If we're getting called names, we know we're doing our job. And that meeting, with all the bullshit, which that was, people going up there whining about, I don't like the way you said that. I don't give a shit. You know, one man's patriot is another man's terrorist. But isn't it amazing how language is always used as a weapon? Do you notice that when you're rich and crazy, they don't call you crazy? You can't call some elitist rich idiot crazy. He's eccentric. Eccentric. Not crazy. Not batshit crazy. Eccentric. Joe Biden doesn't lie. They just had an article about Joe Biden exposing all his lies. His uncle got eaten by cannibals. You know, he went to free Nelson Mandela. He drove an 18-wheeler. You know, he flew an F-15. I don't know, whatever. You know, all the guy does is lie. But he doesn't lie. Why? Because he's a Democrat. He's a liberal. The article said Joe tells tall tales. Tall tales. Not lies. He tells tall tales. He embellishes things. Those are all the pretty words that the elitists use to cover their hypocrisy. Great thing about being a regular person like us is if I think you're an asshole, I'm going to call you an asshole. I'm not going to try to find some sesquipedalian word to cover up the fact that I think you're an asshole.
Although
With that,
sometimes you
CJ,
do.
with that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you. That's enough about the school committee meeting, because the only thing the school committee proved is Paul Coogan hasn't done a damn thing about education in 9 years on the school committee.
Well, there is something I want to bring up about number one, the school committee, and number two, a local school. The teachers were there in force. The teachers were there in force because their contract's coming up for renewal in August. And they were screaming about how in other communities like Somerset, Swansea, Westport, Dartmouth, New Bedford, they can get paid more money, between $10,000 and $25,000 more. And that's why they have a problem getting teachers. Did you know that your students don't have a teacher, so they sit in the cafeteria and do nothing? No substitutes, nothing. Chip even knows because he has a friend who was a retired school teacher, and she went back to teaching because they needed a teacher so bad, and they're paying her big bucks. And that's the only reason why she's there. This is how your school system sucks. This is why we're failing. The teachers want a pay raise. The teachers want safe schools. The teachers said it. They want safe schools. They want more paras. They want more teachers, and they want more money.
Do you realize how reprehensible that statement is, that when the school teaches and they deserve to be paid, you can't get paid, teachers, because Paul's too busy giving everybody else pay raises.
That's right.
Not the people who do the work. And I respect what you do. And you should get a fair and equitable pay scale. But we make sure we pay everybody else at the max. But you know what's really reprehensible? Number one, a safe work environment is not a collective bargaining issue. It's a right. It's a right. You have a right to be provided a safe work environment. It's against the law to allow this. But Paul Coogan, 9 years. Nine. 4 as a school committeeman, and his 5th year now as the ex officio. Then he'll have 10 years after he gets done with this next year. 10 years as part of the school committee. And what did they do about safe work environments? They covered it up. They covered up Malone's dirty deeds. And some of them are still, two out of the major 3 are still on the school committee. One came back. Now they're all there. Covered up. We showed fist fights on this show. Fist fights taking place in the schools. The graffiti on the walls. It's out of control.
The tampons on the walls.
How can you, how pathetic are you as a leader? You want stability, continuity? No, you want leadership and accountability. We have teachers saying that we want a safe work environment. They shouldn't have to say that. The school committee should have ensured that. And what did the school committee do? They did the exact opposite. They enabled that environment to continue by covering up everything. And Paul Coogan was at the forefront of all these cover-ups. I don't care. I recuse myself. Bullshit. You're pulling the strings behind it. Your puppets were doing whatever they were told. This is just inexcusable. Pay attention, people. This guy has done nothing for the city, for you. He's made his rich friends richer, and he's given everybody else, all his pals, but the people who work, they're working under the threat all the time of retaliation from his regime. They're allowed to work in a place that's a war zone. Not a peep from the school committee. Did we hear anything about it? No, they covered everything up. We didn't hear a word about this environment being, just like we didn't hear a word about bullets flying, and when they do it, oh, don't worry about it. They're not in your house. Oh, don't worry about it. They didn't get killed. It was only a flesh wound. She only got shot in the thigh. You realize how totally insane those kind of responses are when you're the leader of a city? Oh, it was targeted. That's another one I love. Targeted. Targeted? How many times have they missed the target and shot people? Watch the news every once in a while. In Chicago, there's always 2 or 3 dead on a weekend that were getting hit by stray bullets. We shouldn't have people shooting up the streets. I mean, this is just nuts. This guy has done, I have never seen a mayor be in office this long and do zero for the people. And the people not rise up. Wake up. With that, CJ, back.
You spoke about shootings. Well, the Watson School was shut down, put in lockdown yesterday, because at about 1:15, police units responded to 100 block of Raymond Street after the department received several reports of shots fired in the area. Officers located several spent shell casings in the area. At least one vehicle sustained damage consistent with the projectile. There is no evidence to suggest that anyone was struck. Witnesses reported seeing a vehicle flee the area moments after the sound of gunshots. The shooting put the Samuel Watson Elementary School on Eastern Avenue on lockdown. Detectives assigned to the Major Crime Division and Crime Scene Unit are on the scene always. They're always working on it. So again, there's more shootings. More shootings. This time in the neighborhood of a school. And they went into lockdown. And parents were worried because the only thing they got was Watson School in lockdown. That was the message they got.
But remember, CJ, these things aren't that we're worried about. They hit a car. I'm sure they weren't trying to kill a car.
No.
You know, they're shooting at somebody or
Agreed.
sending a message, but they just spray bullets. So, right. I mean, this whole attitude of let's just dismiss everything and deflect it. Like, you don't have a bullet hole in your house. You don't, nobody shot your car. Shut up. And I'm with you, David, on that last comment there. Yeah. Yeah. And shots being fired. And listen, even if they weren't, it is a known fact that you have to deal with the perception. When your citizens do not feel safe in their own neighborhoods, when your school teachers don't feel safe in their schools, let me put it very succinctly. You're not doing your freaking job, school committee. You're not doing your freaking job. And you, Paul Coogan, are not doing your job just like you haven't done for the last 9 years as a member of the school committee and now as the mayor and the ex officio chairman. When people don't feel safe, it's your job to make them feel safe. But all you worry about is making your friends rich and spending money and giving your friends pay raises. Let's give your chief of staff another pay raise. Boop, $100,000 for being a secretary. Thank you very much. Back to you, CJ.
It's amazing though. And one of the things that went on at that school committee meeting, besides the fact that the teachers didn't feel safe, was the teachers wanted more money. And did you know that a teacher exposed the fact that two-thirds of the students at Durfee sit in the cafeteria? and do nothing because the school doesn't have teachers. I think that number might be a little high, but I don't care if it's 1/3. I don't care if it's 10%. Those kids deserve an education. And don't give me that you can't afford it. You're getting extra millions under the millionaire tax. You're getting millions and millions of dollars more for the school department. Why can't that money go to the teachers? We say it all the time. You get all this extra money, but none of it goes to the students. None of it goes to the teachers. That's where the problem is. Because you got friends like a mechanic that Kevin Aguiar has asked about. And no reports. No information. Like the search committee's minutes for the superintendent so he can see what was done and how it was done. He asked for those minutes back in April. They have 10 days to comply on a public records request. They still haven't provided them to him. What do they have to hide? Wait a minute, Paul's transparent. I do everything by the law. Well, obviously, Paul, you're not doing this by the law. You're missing something. You're missing the boat somewhere. And for your superintendent, and she may be done with her job, but for your superintendent to turn around and answer Kevin Aguiar with, once I received your request, I gave it to the mayor. And Kevin Aguiar was right. It's not your job to give it to the mayor. It was your job to give it to the secretary. That way the information could have been provided, but instead it went to the mayor where it died, where it got buried, where it went into the shredder. This is how Fall River treats disgruntled employees, disgruntled elected officials. We ignore you. We don't listen to you. We don't pay attention to you. And that's why Sarah Roderick said, Afada, I'm out of here. Can't make it up.
Yeah. Well, listen, you can see how they're frustrated because he runs. This is like a, this is like Nazi Germany. Everything's got to go to him. So the superintendent sends it to him. Superintendent is getting paid over $200,000 a year. When she gets a legitimate legal request for something from a school committee person, it should have went to the secretary, not the mayor. The mayor does not have to. But when you have a dictatorial mayor, this is the way things are run. You don't just get things done. You just have to clear it, kiss the ring of the Godfather. And this is the problem in the city of Fall River. They've and CJ, you made that really crazy statement about did we know that too? We don't know anything about the school department. You know that, CJ. It's like North Korea.
That's right.
Everything's hidden. Everything's covered up. We didn't know that the teachers are in such fear of their work environment that they're actually trying to ask for it during collective bargaining. That's not a collective bargaining issue. It's not a mandatory subject to bargaining under 150E, and it's not even a non-mandatory subject of bargaining under 150E, because it is something that is a obligation of the city to provide a safe workspace. There are state, federal laws about providing safe workspace. How much have we regressed in our school department with Coogan with his finger in the pie for 9 years and his rubber stamp school committee? Now that we have somebody besides Kevin Aguiar to say something, Colin, I know, was on a policy committee, which could be the biggest mistake they ever made, because I know he's going to really dig into it. But this whole thing it's crazy. I mean, think about it. Our teachers, they're to the point where they have to ask for a safe work environment. And I know David said he doesn't feel safe. And yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame you. And this is the key. The key is, but they say, shut up. You're not even, you don't even count. You're just a regular Fall River person. And, we're still on a school committee, but they don't care. They don't care about us. Just like the school. We had 3 homeless people go to public input, citizens input.
The council meeting yesterday.
At the council meeting. And remind our council, mayor, that they are human beings. And one of them said, I'm not a drug addict, and I don't have mental issues. I'm homeless. And I take care of my space, and I bury when I go to the bathroom and everything else. And I mean, you have to feel sympathy for these people. But then they did, where are the showers that were promised? Where are the other things that were promised for homeless people by Paulie?
That we spent ARPA money on.
And remember, they'll be there now. There'll be a statement because of this show. There'll be a statement soon coming and with an excuse or saying that, oh, we've got them. They just don't know where they are. So we hit them. I don't know. But, that shows the insanity of this. You know where they are? They're going to be a lot more homeless people because of this economy and because of these tax increases. There are going to be people losing their homes. There's going to be a lot more. But you know where those showers and toilets and things are? The same place the tax reduction that Paul Coogan promised when in his first term. Remember that, CJ?
I remember it clearly.
Oh yeah, he did. Didn't he make that promise?
Yes, he did.
Not once, but I think when he ran for a second term, he mentioned it again. But we know that the regular people don't get anything from this administration. They don't do anything. I mean, the school department is his bastion of power. He's been part of that system for 40 years, give or take, maybe even more. As an employee and as a school committee and now mayor / ex officio chairman. And in that 40 years, has this leader of a mayor done anything? Have we seen any positive movement in the school committee, in the school system? We've seen a lot of pay raises for certain people. We've seen reorganizations. We've seen studies. We've seen everything except positive movement. And remember, this school committee had an opportunity to hire an individual to run this system who has worked in systems that actually had positive movement in their educational attainment, and they didn't consider it.
That's right.
But now the propaganda machine is in full-blown power, saying how great it is. And anybody that didn't support the person who hasn't got the same record, you're being terrible people, and you're attacking them. It's horrible. No, you just try to listen. If it, the old saying, CJ, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, I hate to tell you, this thing's broken. It's been broken for a long time, and they ain't fixing it because they're all getting rich with it.
That's it. Hey, we got a question. It's not, germane to our conversations here, but the Borg, our viewer of the Borg, is asking, what World War II movie was it that you talked about Pork Chop Hill that you liked, Chip? We spoke about it last week, he said.
Oh, geez.
About D-Day.
I don't think I talked about Pork Chop Hill specifically. I think that may even in the Korean conflict, but I have a few. That probably the one that I was talking about at some point in time was The Longest Day.
Mm-hmm.
Probably The Longest Day, because that had fundamentally, they covered the entire D-Day invasion and because we were talking about D-Day, covered the entire D-Day vision, basically all aspects. They talked about the Ranger Battalion. They talked about the 101st and the 82nd jumping into, in at Normandy, and it talked about the ground troops. It showed the beaches and stuff like that. Probably the most comprehensive look at uh, at that I've ever seen. That was a really good movie. Had a lot of really great actors in there, and probably that was it. I mean, there are so many movies about certain aspects of that stuff, but I'm sorry I can't. I'd have to look at the show again and see what I can go back and look at the show. I'll try to get you a definitive answer, but
I like the Band of Brothers.
that was a great series. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was specifically about the 101st Airborne.
Yes, it was.
But as I said, we have Fall River has a link. We have some people. We had some people that they've passed, and some of them live. LaBerge Wrecking.
Yep.
Very, very prominent company in this city for very many, many years. His son was a very good friend of mine. I didn't know until many, many years later. I knew him obviously through his son, and I knew him through his demolition company. But I didn't find out till many, many years later that he jumped in with the 82nd Airborne at D-Day. And I also had a relative who was in the 82nd Airborne Division during World War II and jumped. And so we have people in Fall River who participated in that. My father was, fought in the Battle of the Bulge, fought throughout Europe for the war. Basically everybody in my family, I think, was in the military. So on both sides of my family, they were in everything. Obviously, I'll try to get you an answer on what definitive thing. I don't know whether it may have been Hamburger Hill I was talking about. If that's the case, that's the name of the movie, Hamburger Hill. But that was in the Vietnam War.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to. I hope that helps you, Borg, and as Chip said, to get that answer to you, hopefully on Monday. The city council meeting last night, very interesting meeting. You already brought up the fact that 3 homeless people came before the city council, and they've made it clear that they are human. Laura Washington said that she felt very proud of those people for coming forward because it must have been very embarrassing. And she's right. It must have been very embarrassing. But the fact that they had to come forward and say that they police their own community, they clean up the mess, they take care of their bodily waste. It's not being put all over the place. And they say, even after we clean up, people come by and they dump mattresses and they dump trash and they get blamed for it. Where the hell did I get a mattress? A woman turned around and said that she needs respiratory treatments. And she goes, I don't have electricity, so I can't get them. Another man said, you promised us showers. You promised us washing machines. You promised us bathrooms. Where are they? I don't know. Ask Paul. And Sean Kadim said, look, we're the legislative body. We can't do anything to make it happen. If the mayor sends it down to the city council, we can approve the funding for it. But if the mayor doesn't send it down, we can't do anything about it. We're the legislative body. We're not the executive branch. And, it's not a cop-out. It's the truth. But, to some of those people, it may have felt like a cop-out. People were truly concerned about them. And it's a shame that they're treated like that. And Michelle Dion made it clear that she's gone there several times and seen them.
Well, I have a slightly different perspective on what happened last night because I am not embarrassed for them. I am proud of those people.
Yes.
I am proud of those people. Our council, say you're embarrassed only means that the way you look at those people. These people are homeless. We have long said on this show that there are homeless who are drug addicted and have mental issues. But what really, really disgusts me is that in this city, in this country, we have homeless people, the largest homeless population in the history of this nation, because of this pathetic government that we have. Yet there's not an illegal that they don't find a home for. They'll kick school children out of their schools to make sure they got showers. They'll co-opt any kind of building to put them in, but not homeless veterans. This is a symptom of a society in decay. Our political body, our body politic, for the most part, unless you live in a red state where people still care about Americans, I think that was something that should have been looked upon as just what it was, a statement to how far this society has abandoned its own people. We have people who are saying, where are my toilets and washing machines, that are American citizens, but our governor is more worried about illegals. This is the problem, because the liberals have convinced everybody that it's important to take care of everybody else except Americans. But if you're on the right party, you can go down right now and deface any kind of building you want, have a riot, cause hundreds of billions of dollars worth of damage, and there'll be nothing. But if you're the wrong party, they'll throw your ass in jail. They're still throwing people in from January 6th. They defaced more the other day. Look at what they did in the Summer of Love in Seattle and in Oregon, in Washington State and Oregon. All the damage that was caused, no repercussions. But they threw an 80-year-old woman. They threw an 80-year-old woman in jail, the DOJ, for praying in front of an abortion clinic. What does that tell you about our society? They're throwing people in jail because they believe in God or they prayed outside of an abortion clinic. Yet, they can run amok in the streets. They're not for praying. They're calling anybody that believes, they call people who believe in God now. They want to brand them as a terrorist organization. This country was created, in God we trust, by religious groups who are escaping religious persecution. They made a differentiation between secular law and clerical law. There is a separation of church and state. But we can never not recognize the fact that this nation was created because of religious issues, for the most part. I mean, this just speaks to me of the degeneration of a society. Rome lasted a lot longer than we did, a lot longer than some of these things I'm reading about in The End of Everything, the book I've gotten by Victor David Hanson, and I recommend it if you want a history lesson from a brilliant, brilliant historian. But it speaks to our society. And then we got the resident snowflake saying, this is harassment. It's not harassment. It's a public official expressing a different opinion. That's what they're there for. The Continental Congress was one of the most divisive Congress as ever. There were literally duels and fights during the Congress, but they did ultimately come to an agreement. That's the way a society moves. You need differences of opinion. You have a thesis and antithesis, and you come up with a synthesis, and it continues to evolve. But this country is on its way to destruction. We will be a third world country, third rate power, just like a lot of these other countries we've seen that were powerful at one time, because our moral compass is not even operative. Somebody just destroyed it, because what happened in front of the city council is a statement about our society. We can't take care of our own, but we will take care of everybody else first. We'll worry about closing Ukraine's borders, but we won't. They just got 6 terrorists from one of the stands, Tikistan, whatever, one of the Russian break-off things, who were ISIS terrorists. They came through the border and they said they were fully vetted, but they weren't. We have nearly 100,000 Chinese in here, 25 to 50,000 of them are military age. Nobody cares. They tell you, shut up. We got to worry about the Green New Deal, electric cars, and making all the rich people richer. We got a problem, Houston. And if we don't deal with it in November and in the following November in this city, it's time to stop being embarrassed because they showed up at a meeting and do something about it. And I don't want to hear you trying to pass the buck, Kadeem. You were right. You are the legislative body. But you can be vocal about doing something for these people. Oh, go see the mayor. That's the rotating wheel they put you on, the gerbil wheel. Oh, go see this guy. Go see that guy. Go see this. Oh, that's not my job, man. It's not my job. Oh, wait a minute. I wanted to do it, but the state wouldn't let me. Horse shit. You always make time for the things you really want to do. And you should always make time to take care of the people you were elected to serve. With that, CJ, back to you.
Well, remember, this mayor has said he's gone into the homeless encampments. He's there to help the homeless, but your promises have gone empty. Okay? Empty words. Empty words. Maybe you should do something about it, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Dictator.
Remember what Bob Mello said, CJ. He stole that from, he paraphrased it. Words without deeds are worthless weeds.
Yes. Yes.
That was Bob Mello's favorite saying, and that was always directed at politicians.
Yep. And guess what? He was not wrong. He was not wrong. One last thing before we sign out. Yesterday in the city council meeting, Cliff Ponte did not want to give the city over $800,000 in reserve money, whatever reserve money is, because he didn't want them to be using one-time money to meet budgetary needs. So he worked to get it down to $200,000 in their reserve funds. So that's what the mayor's got to play with. That's what he's got to play with. Oh, well, life is tough.
Oh, well, remember too, I was mentioned there, and I want to know if I get any kind of reimbursement for them invoking my name at the council.
Yeah, that's a stipend that they're trying to cut all the stipends out too. But it was interesting. You should watch last night's city council meeting if you haven't. I mean, we're talking about people that were hired with ARPA funds, which we brought up. And Michelle Dion said they were hired with ARPA funds. They're not an ordinance. Pay them again with ARPA funds, and then go through the process and put them in ordinance the right way, and then put them in the budget. No, they put them in the budget now. They're not an ordinance. Okay? And they said, well, you got to keep these people working. You got to keep these people with a paycheck. That was the excuse they used for every budgetary cut that Michelle wanted to make, which were valid budgetary cuts. These people need to get paid. They're used to this money. We made a mistake. She's doing duties out of service. That wasn't a stipend. That's duty out of service money. Hey, you made the mistake. You pay for it. Don't make mistakes. You're supposed to be the city administrator. I don't remember Bob Connors making big mistakes like that. I remember Bob Connors knowing the money, knowing where the money was. He never said, I don't know. I don't know more often from Bridget and Seth Aikens than I've ever heard in my life from a city administrator and chief financial officer.
Well, let me tell you something, CJ. What it proved last night is that we don't abide by the law in this city because ordinances mean nothing. That's what they just said. It doesn't matter whether we said that these salaries have to be an ordinance, and if they're not, they should not be paid. We'll ignore the law. So this is why these people have to go. We have an incompetent as a city administrator. Who's running those departments? Who's making these people take on other jobs? They're doing whatever they want, and then that's their excuse. Do you realize how insane this is? It's like me telling you, well, CJ, listen, I'm going to give you this job, that job, this job, and that job to do that isn't your job now. And then later on, I'm going to put you in for a nice pay raise and everything else because you're doing all these extra jobs. And then then they're going to have to pay you because you're already doing them. Well, what they should do is fire the people who gave those people those jobs without going through the process.
That's right.
Period. Because the people who work under a contract can't violate that contract because they'll be brought up. They'll be disciplined. But we have no administration in this city. We have no ability to control our fight. This is chaos. Paul Coogan. Chaos Coogan. Just keep paying them and coming up with it. And our council rubber stamps it. They're all guilty, except for Michelle, of malfeasance. It's our tax money they're pissing in a hole.
That's right.
They're worried about them going without a paycheck. How about the people going without a damn mortgage payment because of all the tax increases and fee increases you morons are going to give us because this is what you do every year.
That's right.
Since Coogan's been in office. Paying people. Oh, I put them on with opera money, and later on, we're not even going to ask you if you want to keep these. You just pay them. Shut up and pay.
That's it. And we talked about this. And we talked about this. I'll tell you what.
There's only one city council that's getting my vote in the next election because this council is abysmal.
It is.
Abysmal.
It is. It truly is. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great day.